Next on Sisterhood of the Second Act.
If you have space in your home and your heart, DePaul Community Resources needs your help. The nonprofit matches children in need with foster parents. DePaul's Regional Manager of Foster Care and Independent Living, Melissa Cook, is here to tell us how the organization opens doors to hope and belonging by helping children have a safe place to be children. And the green movement is alive and well in the burial industry. Environmentally minded people now have a few options when it comes time to choose their final resting place. Evergreen Memorial Trust's Blair Graninger joins us to explain natural burial and why more and more families are choosing it. We'll meet these women on this edition of Sisterhood of the Second Act right after this.
See where a grateful nation remembers its heroes, and where Thomas Jefferson came to relax. Where small town charm is just down the road from big outdoor adventures. Find peace and quiet, as well as the sounds of family fun. Destination Bedford is located where the Piedmont Plateau meets the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Where ordinary ends, Bedford begins.
Looking for your first home or retirement home? Realtor Monica Nicely can help you find it. Whether you're moving in or out of the Roanoke region, call Monica 540-449-2019, 540-449-2019. Alcova Mortgage Loan Officer Jonathan Sweat helps you seal the deal with the loan to suit your needs with great rates and terms. Call Jonathan 540-314-8843, 540-314-8843.
Alcova Mortgage, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID number 40508, MLSConsumerAccess.org. Terms and conditions apply. All loans subject to credit approval.
I'm gonna be an oak tree.
I think I'll be a dogwood tree.
My kids said they'd be looking for a thorny tree for me.
With Evergreen, you can be a tree. Our biodegradable urn combines your ashes, natural soil additives, and a native tree of your choice. Be a tree and grow for tomorrow.
I want to be a tree.
Learn more at evergreenmemorialtrust.com.
Now from the Fox Radio Roanoke studios, this is Sisterhood of the Second Act. Welcome to Sisterhood of the Second Act. I'm Denise Allen Membrano. Unfortunately, the need for compassionate individuals to provide safe, loving homes for children in need is great and continues to grow. The need is especially great for children and teens of color, sibling groups, and youth with special needs for behavioral supervision and support. Foster parents can positively impact a child's life. Melissa Cook is with DePaul's Community Resources. She's the Regional Manager of Foster Care and Independent Living, and she has seen the impact loving adults can have on a child, and she's here to tell us more about DePaul's foster care program. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, before we start talking about foster care, tell us more about DePaul. What kind of services do you all offer?
So DePaul opened its doors in 1977 here in Roanoke, and since that time we've expanded our programs to include therapeutic foster care, independent living. We also offer community-based services, which includes outpatient counseling, in-home services, and mentoring services for youth and families. We also offer in some of our locations day support programs, which is a program for adults with disabilities to go to during the day and be part of enriching activities, possibly go out in the community. And we also offer sponsored residential homes, which are homes for disabled adults to go to. So we've really been able to expand our services to include multiple types of individuals.
Multiple people in need. So what area do you serve?
So currently we serve the Roanoke area, of course. We go as far north as Harrisonburg, and we also include Charlottesville, and then we go back down 81 to Christiansburg, Big Stone Gap, Abington, Cedar Bluff. We also have recently expanded out towards the Richmond area with our adult services.
Now, we were talking before the interview about the need for foster parents, and you said that you had seen that need grow.
Yes.
Why is that?
So at At this time, I think what has happened is we all know COVID had a huge impact on everyone, right, in various ways. And of course, it's affected the foster care system. And what we have seen is we are getting numerous referrals from local Department of Social Services, but unfortunately, we just don't have the homes at capacity to be able to take all of those children in need. We're seeing referrals for a lot of teens, referrals for a lot of sibling groups. So what's happening is the local departments want to try to keep them local, and the homes are just filling up faster than we can open them for the need.
We are talking with Melissa Cook. She's DePaul's regional manager of foster care and independent living. And how does your foster program work? How do you match the kids with foster parents?
So when we have a home that inquires with us and wants to start the process and go through that process, part of the home study process is that we will have them do what's called a child profile. So we ask them what they feel would be a good fit for their home. We have them complete that, and when they actually are approved, that is included in their approval, whether it be a certain age, a certain gender, whether it be certain behaviors. Those are all questions that we ask during that process to ensure that it's a good fit for their family too. So when the local Department of Social Services will call us, then we try to get as much information as we can, or they have, which sometimes unfortunately may not be much, but we try to get what they have, and then we go through our homes and see who would be a good fit based upon their child profile or what other children they might have in their home.
If someone is interested in being a foster parent, what do they have to go through to become one?
So for DePaul, we do offer a pre-service. So that's a requirement. It's a 10-week course that includes both virtual classroom learning and also an online learning component that they're required to complete. And part of that is we have continued to do it virtual because we can cover our whole footprint at one time. So we can reach out to all of our offices for potential homes that they might have coming through. And we can provide the same information to them at the same time. So they would receive that pre-service training, and then they would be required to go through the home study process. So we have assigned home finders that have very specific guidelines that is given to us through the state, which is part of our licensing requirement. And then our home finders go through that process with them to ensure they meet all of our standards and the state standards. So that's, we try to coordinate those two together so that way they are going through pre-service at the same time that they're meeting with the home finder so that the process can be streamlined.
I know that people may think, oh, well, I would love to have another child in my home, but they might be afraid of the reason behind that child needing foster care. So what are reasons that children might need foster care?
So most of the reasons that we will see is that child is a victim of abuse and neglect. So it could be anything from physical abuse, physical neglect, sexual abuse. It could be abandonment. It could be a lack of supervision. Typically, it's situations where the Department of Social Services has received a complaint about that family and they've gone out to investigate it. It could be they decided to remove the children as soon as they went out. It could be they worked with the family for a while and then they decided it was safest for those children to be placed in another home until they could get services in place for that family.
So what length of time? Are there different lengths of time? Like are some kids placed temporarily and some on a more permanent basis?
Yes, we have had that situation where children might be placed in foster care, and it could be until the first court hearing when they've been able to locate relatives. Sometimes the situation is so chaotic that the agency may not be able to get information about other places for the child to go. And once things have calmed down some, then they're able to do that. So it could be that they are able to locate a relative or a family friend that's appropriate, and they can place that child with them. Or it could be that child's in care sometimes, unfortunately, for several years just depending on the court system and things like that.
Okay. And we are talking with Melissa Cook. She is DePaul's Regional Manager for Foster Care and Independent Living. And who makes a good foster parent? We were talking earlier about different personality traits and ages. So who makes a good foster parent?
So, one thing that we really look for with our homes is people who can be flexible, people who can be open to trying maybe things that were out of their comfort zone. And when I say that, it might be a different type of discipline that they used with maybe if they had their own children. People who are willing to engage with us as a team, people who have open communication. Communication is huge for us, and to be able to work with them and their children and the children in their home. We really don't have, I shouldn't say we don't have an age limit. It's all things that once they apply, then we can evaluate and talk to them and see what might fit and what might work for them.
You mentioned that some of these kids have gone through trauma, or most likely most of them. What kind of support do you give the foster parents, both emotionally and as well as monetarily?
So the difference between a therapeutic foster agency such as DePaul and a local Department of Social Services is that we can provide more support. And how that looks is we can provide multiple trainings. We have a worker available on call 24/7 for this family. We have smaller caseloads than the local department, so we are able to provide they're able to connect with us easier because we have a lower caseload. So we're able to provide that support. We also have events where they can meet together, they can talk to each other, they can rely on each other for support. And as far as the financial support is with our homes, the state they have a rate as far as by age, which is a standard rate for age, but then there's also a rate that's determined by an assessment tool, which is based upon that child's needs and behaviors. So that tool determines any additional compensation for that child, just because if they have certain behaviors, they might have higher needs, such as additional counseling appointments, transportation, they might need to go to a specialized school. So their needs are greater, which means the care you have to provide is a higher level. So the state really tries to compensate for that.
We mentioned in the introduction that you've seen positive impacts. How have you seen foster parents change lives?
Oh my gosh, so I have been in the field almost 20 years. I was a foster care worker at a local Department of Social Services before transitioning to DePaul. And to just be able to see the children experience things in their life that really kids should be able to. They should be able to play a sport. They should be able to go to a karate lesson. They should be able to just be kids. And to just see even just the physical differences in them from the time that they might be placed in our home initially to when we go out and even a month later, just to see just physically how much healthier they appear, they look, they feel.
Less stress.
Yeah, they really have a weight lifted off their shoulders as far as just having to not have to worry about some of the things they did before. So it's hard to put into words just seeing the children who are in homes that really meet their needs, how much of a difference they are as children, and that they truly can just be children.
So being a foster parent can really change somebody's life.
Oh, absolutely. It is one of those things where I've heard people say they think that I'm giving to them, but really they've changed my life. It really is a life-changing position.
Now, foster parenting isn't the only way people can help. How can our listeners and viewers help DePaul Community Services?
So one of the things, because we understand that fostering is not for everyone, and but if there are individuals that maybe they know that could possibly be interested to share our information, we also have a fund called the Bridge to Hope Fund. And what that is if individuals from the community would like to donate to that, that is a fund that we created that it's for for when other people say no. It might be, it's just that fun to where we can provide the extra camp or piano lessons or things that really no other funding stream will provide that is beneficial for these children. So there's that. There's always, they can reach out to DePaul and see if there's specific child needs. We have children in independent living apartments who are, well, they're not children, they're young adults from 18 to 21. So that's always a need, as far as there might be things for their apartment that they could use. So really to support them, again, that's a
bridging that gap from foster care
correct to them being independent. Yes.
Wow, that's great. Melissa, thank you so much for coming in
Absolutely.
today. We really appreciate it. And we will have DePaul Community Resources contact information in today's show notes at sisterhoodofthesecond.com. And up next, what's old is new again. More and more families are choosing natural burials. It's the way we used to do it, and it turns out it's environmentally friendly. Learn more right after this.
Looking for your first home or retirement home? Realtor Monica Nicely can help you find it. Whether you're moving in or out of the Roanoke region, call Monica 540-449-2019, 540-449-2019. Alcova Mortgage Loan Officer Jonathan Sweat helps you seal the deal with the loan to suit your needs with great rates and terms. Call Jonathan 540-314-8843, 540-314-8843.
Alcova Mortgage, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID number 40508, MLSConsumerAccess.org. Terms and conditions apply. All loans subject to credit approval.
Once again from the Fox Radio Roanoke Studios, Sisterhood of the Second Act. Welcome back to Sisterhood of the Second Act. I'm Denise Allen Membrano. Before the practice of embalming, every burial was a natural burial. Natural burials are making a comeback. It's an environmentally friendly option. It can be less expensive, and some say it's a more moving and intimate way to say goodbye to a loved one. One of the only natural cemeteries in Virginia is Evergreen Memorial Trust Forest Rest. Blair Graninger is here to tell us more about natural burials, answer our questions, and explain why they are becoming more popular. Blair, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So not only does Evergreen have Forest Rest, they also have other properties as well, 5 others. How are they different from Forest Rest?
Well, when people think about cemeteries, that would be a good description of what the rest of our cemeteries are. So Forest Rest is part of a hybrid cemetery. So at Mountain View Memorial Park in Boone's Mill, we have the same that we have at the other locations. We have ground burials, we have mausoleums, we have columbariums, places for cremation, the Be a Tree program, pretty much the norm cemetery. Forest Rest is different. It's 100% natural, and everything that takes place in Forest Rest is organic. It has to be a natural product. And we try to use limited machinery in Forest Rest. Generally, about the only machinery that would be used is preparing the grave itself, the opening and closing, but there is the option to have a hand-dug grave. And I do have some clients that have opted to do that as well.
Wow. And so what does Forest Rest look like?
It's a forest. There's a gentle path that leads down, and as soon as you walk down, you would think that you were walking through the woods. You would notice that there are some mounds of dirt. Those are the graves, because there is a mound of dirt that's placed over the grave. As the body returns back to the earth, that settles down. Whereas if you go to maybe a loved one's site after they're buried, it's flat in the regular cemeteries. And so down there, it literally feels like you're walking through the woods. And we have deer that cross through. There's a little chipmunk that runs through. When the cicadas were out last year, it was like there was an orchestra down there, because the cicadas were singing and the birds were singing. And in lieu of having a tent per se that we might have at a traditional service, the canopy of the trees, that's our tent.
So what is natural burial? I know there are some burials that are minimal embalming or something like that, but what is natural burial?
Natural burial is, again, 100% organic. There is a green approved embalming fluid that can be used. I've only had one client thus far that has opted for that, and that was because of the service that she was having. The embalming is really for those that are living, for the viewing and different things like that. But the natural burial is you're either wrapped in a shroud, or you can be in anything organic as far as clothing, no plastic, no rayon, no polyester, 100% silk, linen, cotton, wool, and then you can be in a biodegradable casket. And the deceased is lowered in the grave and covered with dirt, and you're not using an outer container that many may be familiar with, a vault. And so we don't allow those in forced rest.
I never thought about clothing having to be organic. That's interesting. No polyester, no rayon, which could probably last for thousands of years. We are talking with Blair Graninger of Evergreen Memorial Trust about natural burials. And we said earlier that they were becoming more popular. Who chooses natural burial and why?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. When I started in 2012, we had just opened, or excuse me, 2013, we had just opened in 2012. There were 2 spaces sold when I came on board. To date, we have over 160 spaces sold.
Wow.
We've had over 60 interments. I generally get at least 2 to 3 inquiries per week. I just had an hour-long conversation before I left to come up today. And she's in Texas, but all of her family is here. And she wants to do the natural burial. Most people are probably 80% of the time looking for a more economical option, but then when they find out about forced rest instead of leading to cremation, they were like, why would I put all the carbon monoxide out in the atmosphere? Why would we burn all the fossil fuels for the cremation when I can just go back to the earth? And so it's not for everyone. But one of the things that Don Wilson has done, the owner of Evergreen Memorial Trust, is he has researched and tried to provide every option that someone can think of as to how they want that final chapter to be handled.
And headstones and everything are different in forest rest. Explain that.
We use a native stone. So each stone is hand-picked. There are no 2 stones that are the same. They're sandblasted to or engraved to have the name, date of birth, date of death. They can add an additional line if they would like to. We try to customize it just as we do with every service to what that family needs. And if we've had the opportunity to actually talk to the person that's going to be buried there, what's something that you would like? There was a young man that was an accountant, and he used the term bend with the wind. And he had these little curlicues. It was on his truck. And the family asked me, can we have that on the stone? The person that takes care of that for us mimicked that exact saying, so that's on his stone.
Wow.
So when you're walking through the woods, it's not unusual if you're hiking to see a stone that's exposed. And that's what these stones end up looking like. So,
I know some people, aren't some of them also marked with wooden signs? Or
we used to offer a cedar
okay.
tablet. We're no longer offering that. Once the cedar tablet, of course it's insect resistant, but it's not going to be there forever.
Right.
And so once that would disintegrate over time, the family would be responsible for replacing that, or it would be an unmarked grave. And so just recently, within the last month, we decided that that's no longer going to be an option.
Okay, because I was wondering about that for future, all of those, everyone doing ancestry, finding graves, and how would they, is that still findable with a natural cemetery?
Absolutely. So the only thing that's not biodegradable in forest rest are what we refer to our corner markers, and they're aluminum. So at the corner of each lot, there's 10 spaces per lot, then there's a corner marker. So if you have a loved one at any of our cemeteries, you can go onto our website, go to the specific cemetery that they're located, key in their name, it'll bring up their obituary, their picture. Families are welcome to share that information and share stories. So I kind of call it the cemetery Facebook, because they can share pictures, they can share stories, and everyone's so spread out these days. But if you find that, you can say locate. And then by GPS, it will take you to the longitude and latitude of that grave. You keep refreshing it, it'll get you actually to the grave. The initial search for it is within 15 feet of the grave. Closer you get, it will lead you actually to the grave.
Wow, that is really cool. So you mentioned that everything has to be biodegradable. So how are bodies taken to the grave site?
Okay, so we strongly urge our families to work with a local funeral home. So they would pick up the deceased, take them back to the funeral home, clean them. If they're going to be in a shroud, they would have the shroud and they will wrap them in the shroud. If they're going to be in a casket, they would clothe them, put them in the casket, and then deliver just as any other funeral service would come to the cemetery. At Forest Rest, we always meet at our mausoleum because it's a good meeting place. We have a cart that we transfer the deceased to, and I give the family the option of walking alongside the cart so that, in a sense of pallbearers or escorting to their final place. Our workers guide that down, and then the deceased is transferred over to the grave. And again, depending on what the family's wishes are, I haven't had one service that is the same as another. And then they're lowered into the grave, and then if the families wish to participate, they can actually help fill the grave. And family and friends are welcome to do that. Some families don't want to do that. Again, everything is customized to the deceased wishes, if I have the opportunity to speak with them and see what their wishes are for the day. And if not, what best suits the family to help them through that grieving process.
We are talking with Blair Graninger of Evergreen Memorial Trust about natural burials. And you had given us a picture which you can go see on our website, sisterhoodofthesecond-act.com. It was I am assuming a woman in a beautiful shroud, and her being lowered into a grave. Talk about that ceremony before we have to head out.
That was a very involved, family-involved service. And so the daughter of the deceased wanted to make her trundle board. So if someone's wanting to be wrapped in maybe grandmother's old quilt, or something that's sentimental to the family, her quilt was actually made from her dresses over the years. And so the daughter made the trundle board. This lady was carried by her family by hand. We did not use the cart. We sang the whole way down to the site, and they told stories. I never had the opportunity to meet this lady ahead of time, and she had a fantastic life and just full of interest, and so I felt like I knew her better. And we sang around as we were completing the service. They had some quiet time, and then they began filling the grave.
Is that what you meant when you told me these are more intimate ceremonies?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting because when we have a service in our main sections, the hearse pulls up, pallbearers carry the casket over, and they're lovely services. And every service that we have, it honors the deceased, but they're really for the living. And when we have a service at Forest Rest, the family's just so involved. They don't have to be if they're not comfortable with it. But 9 times out of 10, the family is so involved and want to be a part of walking alongside the cart, carrying their loved one to the grave. It's almost as if, let's say it's a parent that's being buried. They cared for these children who are now carrying them to their site. And it's a full circle of you cared for us, now we're going to care for you and place you to rest.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So before we have to leave really quickly, is the planning process the same?
It is. So all arrangements can be made ahead of time. There's really nothing any different when you're planning. We urge everyone to pre-plan because it's such a gift to the family. It gives you peace of mind that you've taking care of your family once more in that final step. That's not decisions that they're going to have to make. And a lot of times when I'm talking to people, they'll go, oh, my kids can take care of it. Well, they can, but do you really want to leave that on them to do? And I joke and tell people, you start with me and you finish with me. So you're not dealing with an outside finance company, you're dealing with Evergreen Memorial Trust. So we believe in taking care of our families. We believe in being hand in hand every step of the process. I've been there long enough now to where I've made those pre-arrangements, and now I'm either walking that spouse, surviving spouse, or child through that process of laying their loved one to rest. And it's a very fulfilling and honorable job to be able to help them do that.
Well, Blair, thank you so much for being here and talking about this.
Yeah.
If you want to see pictures, head to our website and see some of the things that people have done to honor their loved ones.
Yeah.
And we will have Evergreen Memorial Trust contact information in today's show notes at sisterhoodofthesecond.com. We'll be back to wrap up the show right after this.
In a region known for its beautiful mountain surroundings, our vibrant arts community makes the Allegheny Highlands a more colorful place to live and visit. Our passion for the arts is endless, and it's uniquely Allegheny.
I want to thank Melissa Cook and Blair Graninger for joining us today. You can learn more about the foster care program at DePaul Community Resources and natural burial at Forest Rest by going to our website at sisterhoodofthesecond.com. I'm Denise Allen Membrano. Join us next week for another edition of Sisterhood of the Second Act.